Hey, bless you. Good morning, good morning. How you doing? Bendigas, Baruch, blessings to you. Hey, I'm Will, right? Uh, I'm just going through a Bible walk on Revelation, reading from the Bible Revelation, and a lot of people just synonymously call it end of times, right? So I don't know. Are we into some weird things going on right now in our life and time? Sure, certainly we are. So um, Revelation is a hard read. I've been in some awesome group studies, Revelation group studies. You know, we brought text. Our group study brought text and materials from some of the greatest minds that ever hit the earth that studied Revelation, had commentary, and in the end, you know, we all convinced that it still is a matter of revelation, right? What God reveals to you through this revelation from the Apostle John. So, without further ado, let's jump straight on in there and get the reading, huh? So today we pick up Revelation 12. I'm reading from Complete Jewish Bible, and I've read from other Complete Jewish Bibles, and the text was a little bit more literal. This translation is supposed to be, you know, grab the original Hebrew text and translate it pretty well. So, at any rate, I also have a MacArthur Study Bible right here. It has commentary, and sometimes we'll go through the commentary and read what some of this stuff is, what their commentary on what it's saying. And again, nobody has this thing perfect, so because it hasn't been totally revealed yet, as we read so far. The bowls and seals and all that hasn't been opened. When all that stuff get open, we'll know. So, all right, 8:12. Now a great sign was seen in heaven: a woman clothed with the sun, under her feet the moon, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and about to give birth, and she screamed in agony of labor. And mind you, that's a celestial thing going on. Stars, moons, that stuff in the stars. 3. Another sign was seen in heaven, more celestial stuff. There was a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its head were 7 royal crowns. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of heaven and threw them down to earth. It stood in front of the woman about to give birth, so that it might devour the child the moment it was born. Wow. It's interesting. It didn't eat her. It waited, you know, for the child. 5. She gave birth to a son, a male child, the one who will rule all the nations with a staff of iron. But her child was snatched up to God and his throne, and she fled into the desert, where she has a place prepared by God so that she can be taken care of for 1,260 days. Remember, you do the math, 1,260, I believe, is 7 years. No, 3.5 years. So, next, there was a battle in heaven. Michael, we call him Michael, Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But it was not strong enough to win, so there was no longer any place for them in heaven. The great dragon was thrown out, that ancient serpent. Excuse me. Also known as the devil and Satan, the adversary of man, the deceiver of the whole world. He was hurled down to earth, and his angels were hurled down with him. You know, something people always say that Satan is fighting God. No, Satan is not the adversary of God. God, Jehovah Yahweh, is the supreme master and ruler of the universe. Satan is the enemy of man, no question of that. He hates and despises man, but he's not God's adversary. And you can read quite many places in Scripture where God, Jehovah Yahweh, is, you know, confronts Satan. Say, Satan, what are you doing here? Satan tell him, hey, I'm cruising the earth, searching the earth, man, to accuse people. So, other case, man, God, talk to Satan, say, hey, Satan, I got an awesome servant, and I bet you with all your wickedness you couldn't tempt him. So, Jehovah Yahweh God he's no adversary of Satan. He's an overseer of Satan and everything else. But when you get into your scripture, you understand that Satan has a dominion and a rule over the earth for a period of time. So, all right. 10. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now have come God's victory, power, and kingship, and the authority of his Messiah, because the accuser of our brothers, who accuses them day and night before God, has been thrown out. See, there you go. They defeated him because of the Lamb's blood. They defeated him because of the Lamb's blood and because of the message of their witness. Even when facing death, they did not cling to life. Therefore, rejoice, heaven, and you who lives there. But woe to you, land and sea, for the adversary has come down to you, and he is very angry, because he knows that his time is short. Let's take a look at that, huh? 13. Now, verse 13. Now, when the dragon saw that he had been hurled down to earth, he went in pursuit of the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given to the wings of the great eagle, so that she can fly to her place in the desert, where she is taken care of for a season and 2 seasons and a half a season. It sounds like 3.5 years. Away from the serpent's presence. The serpent spewed water like a river out of its mouth after the woman, in order to sweep her away in the flood. But the land came to her rescue. It opened its mouth and swallowed up the river which the dragon had spewed out of its mouth. The dragon was infuriated over the woman and went off to fight the rest of her children, those who obey God's commands and bear witness to Yeshua. Then the dragon stood on the seashore. Chapter 13. And I saw a beast come out from the sea, with 10 horns and 7 heads. On its horns were 10 royal crowns, and on its heads blasphemous names. The beast which I saw was like a leopard, with feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like the mouth of a lion. To it the dragon gave its power, its throne, and great authority. One of the heads of the beast appeared to have received a fatal wound, but its fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth followed after the beast in amazement. You hear that? Let's read chapter 13, verse 3 again. One of the heads of the beast appeared to have received a fatal wound, but its fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth followed after the beast in amazement. They worshipped the dragon, because he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who can fight against it? It was given a mouth speaking arrogant blasphemies, and it was given authority to act for 42 months. 3.5 years. So it opened its mouth in blasphemies against God, to insult the name and his Shekinah and those living in heaven. It was allowed to make war on God's holy people and defeat them. It was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. Everyone living on earth will worship it, except those names are written in the book of life belonging to the Lamb, slaughtered before the world was founded. Those who have ears, let them hear. And that sounds scary, fam. I don't know where you go from there. Just repeating them, verse 8. Everyone living on earth will worship it, except those whose names are written in the book of life belonging to the Lamb, slaughtered before the world was founded. I'm praying that my name is in the book. I know I've journeyed and traveled and reveled in sin. But by the grace of God and His Son, Yeshua Jesus, I've been forgiven. I called out His name. I accepted Him as my Lord and my Savior. I did this in my heart, and I confessed it straight up out my mouth. According to the scripture, I shall be saved. I'll be made anew. I'll be washed clean. I'll be grafted into His family with those 13 tribes. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Don't let me down, God. Don't let me down. I'm praying that your word is true. You've revealed yourself to me so far. I have no cause or reason to doubt it to date. I've duly investigated. I've doubted it, suspected it, tested it, tried it. And the word has revealed itself to me to be true at this point in time. I have no more questions. So I'm in that book. Verse 9 again. Those who have ears, let them hear. 10. If anyone is meant for captivity, into captivity he goes. If anyone is to be killed with the sword he is to be killed. All right, there it is, saints. Everybody asking about tribulation, post, pre, and mid. Look, a lot of saints going to get smashed down. There it is. But, like you say, man, why cling to this life? At any rate, this is when God's holy people must persevere and trust. Verse 11, then I saw another beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like those of a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all authority of the first beast in its presence, and it makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, the one whose fatal wound had been healed. It performs great miracles, even causing fire to come down from heaven onto the earth as people watch. It deceives the people living on earth by the miracles it is allowed to perform in the presence of the beast, and it tells them to make an image honoring the beast that was struck by the sword but came alive again. It was allowed to put breath into the image of the beast so that the image of the beast could speak. And it was allowed to cause anyone who would not worship the image of the beast to be put to death. Also, it forces everyone, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead, preventing anyone from buying or selling unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This is where wisdom is needed. Those who understand should count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person and is the number of 666. It's quite interesting. I was reading, I believe it was just last night or the day before, that in China, there's a growing Christian community, but the Chinese just put a stop to that. Chinese consolidating power. Hong Kong, Christians, Muslims, they crushing everything over there, right? They want you to worship the government. I don't know what they want you to worship. I don't want to speculate. But at any rate, the facts are that they have demanded that people cannot even worship Christ in their own homes. They must take down any and all images and anything which appears to be Christ worship. So a lot of people, have crosses, right? So they can focus on Christ, Jesus, staring at the cross. But Chinese said, take that down, right? Now, okay, what if you don't want to take it down? It don't seem as though they're killing anybody, but they got everybody on welfare. It's a welfare state, social communism. So they're saying, look, if you don't take it down, you won't get your welfare. It's in the news. So let me read 16 again. Also, it forces everyone, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead, preventing anyone from buying or selling clothes unless he has the mark. Buying or selling unless he has the mark. That is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. Also, as you well know, that I think it's one of those Nordic nations, Norway, Sweden, or Netherlands. They have an economy now where they've gotten rid of all money, all paper coins and all that. Everything has to go into your bank. Your check account, your check, everything has to go into your bank. Say, so what? Big deal, right? We do that now. But here's the deal. The bank charges you interest on your money that's sitting in their bank. So step one is your money is mandated. Well, there's no paper money. Step two, mandated your check, your money go into the bank. Step three, you get taxed on your money as you get reverse interest, what they call it. As it sits there, you got to pay them. What they got to do with this, I'm not quite sure. But where it says is that where it goes is that they have a system set up for buying and selling, for dominating and controlling your money. Weird thing about it is here in America, people are buying silver, bullets, and guns. I mean, you can't get none of the three. They're flying off the shelves. The price of silver suddenly went up over $1 by itself just yesterday. People are preparing for a cashless society. Yet at the same time, these are the same people that are willing to shoot, kill, hang, maim, and kill other Americans, other people, just because they're asking to not be discriminated against, not be suffer police brutality. It's weird. It's really weird. Maybe that's why I was inspired to read this book, because this stuff is just weird. I can't even explain it. So anyway, let's move on to 4. Let's read and let's not hypothesize, right? Pontificate. So Revelation 14. Then I looked, and there was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him were 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. I heard a sound from heaven, like the sound of rushing waters, and like the sound of pealing thunder. The sound I heard was also like that of a harpers playing on their harps. They were singing a new song before the throne and before the 4 living beings and the elders. And no one could learn the song except the 144 who had been ransomed from the world. These are the ones who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. They follow the Lamb wherever he is gone. They have been ransomed from among humanity as firstfruits for God and the Lamb. On their lips was no lie was found, and they are without defect. Next, I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven with everlasting good news to proclaim to those living on earth, to every nation, tribe, language, and people. In a loud voice he said, "Fear God, give him glory, for the hour has come when he will pass judgment. Worship the one who made heaven and earth, the sea and springs of water." Another angel, a second one, followed, saying, she has fallen, Babel the great. She made all the nations drink the wine of God's fury caused by her whoring." Verse 9, another angel, a third one, followed them and said in a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives the mark on his forehead or his hand, he will indeed drink the wine of God's fury, poured undiluted into the cup of his rage." Woo! "He will be but tormented by fire and sulfur before the holy angels and before the Lamb, and the smoke from their tormenting goes up forever and ever. They will have no rest, day nor night, and those who worship the beast and his image, and those who receive the mark of its name. This is when the perseverance is needed on the part of God's people, those who observe his commands and exercise Yeshua's faithfulness. Verse 13, next I heard a voice coming from heaven saying, write, how blessed are the dead who die united with the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, now they may rest from their efforts, for the things they have accomplished follow along with them. Praise that. 14, verse 14. Then I looked, and there before me was a white cloud. Sitting on the white cloud, sitting on the cloud was someone like a son of man, with a gold crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Another angel came out of the temple and shouted to the one sitting on the cloud, start using your sickle to reap, because the time to reap has come. The earth's harvest is ripe. The one sitting on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was harvested. Verse 17, another angel came out of the temple in heaven, and he too had a sharp sickle. Then out from the altar went another angel, who was in charge of the fire, and he called in a loud voice to the one with the sharp sickle, use your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of grapes from the earth's vine, because they are ripe. The angel swung his sickle down onto the earth and gathered the earth's grapes and threw them into the great winepress of God's fury. The winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood flowed from the winepress as high as the horses' bridles for 200 miles. I think space is 80 miles up. 200. I mean, if you got a satellite, you're not going to be able to get far enough away. All right, I'm going to read 15 and we're going to call it a day. Then I saw another sign in heaven, a great and wonderful one. 7 angels with the 7 plagues that are the final ones, because with them, God's fury is finished. Praise that. I saw what looked like a sea of glass mixed with fire, those defeating the beast. Its image and the number of its name was standing by the sea of glass, holding harps which God had given them. They were singing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. Great and wonderful are the things you have done, Adonai, God's heaven of armies. Just and true are your ways, King of nations, Adonai, who will not fear and glorify your name, because you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you. Your righteous deeds have been revealed. All right, that's the song, right? I don't know the rhythm, the tempo, the beat, I don't know nothing. I try to just make it let you know that it's a song. All right? So, all right, verse 5, 15:5. After this, I looked, and the sanctuary, that is the tent witness in heaven was open. And out of the sanctuary came the 7 angels with the 7 plagues. They were dressed in bright linen and had gold belts around their chests. One of the 4 living beings gave to the 7 angels 7 gold bowls filled with the fury of God, who lives forever and ever. Then the sanctuary was filled with the smoke from God's Shekinah, that is, from his power. And no one could enter the sanctuary until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels had accomplished their purpose. All right, I'm going to call it a wrap for the day, right? I know it's just getting good, right? Here's the good part. That was 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So here's the good news. The good news is that the bad news is over. From here on, we get Shekinah glory. We get after we the angels finish doing what they got to do. From here on, it all gets great, well, and wonderful. One would be inclined to ask, well, who's left? Everybody got deep fried, right? I want to open up the concordance right here and just go over a few things that was mentioned there and see if the concordance give us any input, any help on anything. Let's start with 12:1. He said a sign, right? Remember he's talking about the woman in heaven? So it says right here, the concordance 12:1 is a sign, a symbol pointing to something else. This is the first of 7 signs in the last half of Revelation. So remember, Revelation's hashed 7 years. They kept dividing 42 months, 1,260 days, 3.5 weeks. It's all come up to 3.5. Woman. It's not an actual woman, but a symbolic representation of Israel, pictured in the Old Testament as the wife of God. You can read more about that in Isaiah 54, 5 and 6, Jeremiah 3, 6 through 8, also 31, 32. You can read it more in Ezekiel 16, 32, Hosea 2 and 16. 3 other symbolic women appear in Revelation. They are Jezebel, who represents paganism. That's in Revelation 2:20. 2, the Scarlet Woman, symbolizing the apostate church. And 3, the wife of the Lamb, 9:17, symbolizing the true church. This woman does not represent the church is clear from the context. She was clothed with the sun, moon under her feet, 12 stars. If we go back to Genesis 37, 9 through 11, being clothed with the sun speaks of the glory, dignity, and exalted status of Israel. The people of promise who will be saved and given a kingdom. The picture of the moon under her feet possibly describes God's covenant relationship with Israel, since new moons were associated with worship. Those you can read more about that in 1 Chronicles 23:31. 2 Chronicles 2:4 and 8:13, Ezra 3:5. So here's something, crying out in birth pains, right? So it says, Israel often pictured as a mother giving birth, had agonized and suffered for centuries, longing for the Messiah to come and destroy Satan's sin and death and usher in the kingdom. So let's talk about 12:3. What's the great red dragon? The woman's mortal enemy is Satan, who appears as a dragon 13 times in Revelation. Red speaks of the bloodshed. You can read more about that in John 8:44. 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 diadems or crowns. These are figurative language depicting Satan's domination of 7 past worldly kingdoms and 10 future kingdoms. You can read more about that in Daniel 7:7, 20 and 24. Satan has and will rule the world until the 7th trumpet blows. He has inflicted relentless pain on Israel. That's Dan 8:24, desiring to kill the woman before she could bring forth the child that destroy him. So he knows his time is short. When they talk about in 12:4, the third of stars of heaven, it's talking about Satan's original rebellion. You can read a little bit more about that in Ezekiel 28:11. It resulted in 1/3 of the angelic host joining insurrection and becoming demons. And it says devour it. He says they were talking about unable to prevent the virgin birth of Christ. Satan tried to kill the child in a general massacre of male children commanded by King Herod. That's in Matthew 2:13 through 18, Luke 4:28 through 29. Let's talk about 12:9. Dragon was thrown down to the earth. Satan and his demons were cast out of heaven at the time of their original rebellion, but still have access to it. Right? So you can read about that in Job 1:6 and 2:1. That access will be denied, and they will be forever barred from heaven. Devil and Satan. You can read that about Revelation, right? It comes from Greek verb meaning to slander or to falsely accuse. Wow. He is a malignant liar. You can read about that in John 8:44, 1 John 3 and 8. His accusations against believers are unsuccessful because of Christ, our advocate. Satan, meaning adversary or enemy, appears especially in Job and the Gospels. Deceiver of the world. As he has throughout human history, Satan will deceive people during the tribulation. After his temporary release from the bottomless pit at the end of the millennium, he will briefly resume his deceitful ways. So in 12:17, it said Satan wanted to turn his wrath on the rest of her offspring. What does that mean? That means Satan will turn his frustrated rage against every follower of the Lamb he can find, Jew or Gentile. Commandments of God, testimony of Jesus. That's the revealed truth of God and Christ contained in Scripture. Obedience to God's words always marks a genuine believer. 13:1, a beast rising. Satan takes a position in the midst of the nations of his world, representing the sand of the sea. A beast literally means a monster, which describes a vicious, killing animal. In this context, the term represents both the person, the Antichrist, and his system, the world. The final satanic world empire will be inseparable from the demon-possessed man who leads it. For a discussion on Antichrist, see the notes in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 through 11. He is also described in Daniel 7:8, 21 through 26, Daniel 8, chapter 8, 23 through 25, chapter 9, 24 through 27, chapter 11, 36 through 45. Reading Daniel is very, very interesting and revelatory. I encourage you to read it. Rising out of the sea. The sea serpent represents the abyss or the pit, the haunt of demons. The pictures of Satan summon a powerful demon from the abyss who then activates and controls the beast, that's the Antichrist, and his empire. 10 horns and 7 heads. This description is like that of Satan in Revelation 12:3. The heads may represent successive world empires. We know some have come and gone, right? Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, the Medo-Persians, Greeks, Romans. We know that those were empires led and raised by, under the rule of Satan. And the final kingdom of the Antichrist. The final one is made up of all the kingdoms represented by the horns. 10 is the number that symbolizes the totality of human military and political power, assisting the beast. Woo, the Antichrist. So they mean gonna have it all wrapped up. The military, politics, everything joined up in one. As he controls the world, horns always represents power. As in the animal kingdom, both offensive power, the attack, and defensive power, protection. Daniel shows that the human Antichrist will rise up from these 10 kings. There's more about that in Daniel chapter 7, verses 16 through 24. John picks up the numerical imagery of Daniel chapter 2, 41 through 42, which refers to the 10 toes on the statue's clay and iron feet. That's right. The apostle sees the beast as the final world government, the Antichrist, anti-God coalition, headed by a revived Roman Empire, having the strengths of various world powers, yet mixed with weakness and ultimately crushed. But check more on that in Daniel 2:30, chapter 2, verse 32 through 45, chapter 7, verse 7 and 8, and 9 through 25. The crowns show the regal dominion in his confederate kingdom, blasphemous names. Throughout history, every time a monarch has identified himself as a god, he has blasphemed the true God. Each ruler who contributes to the beast's final coalition has an identity, wears a crown, exerts dominion and power, and therefore blasphemes God. What about this mortal wound is healed? A statement could refer, and here, see, the commentary even admits that it don't know, it speculates. The statement could refer to one of the kingdoms that was destroyed and revived. Could be the Roman Empire, but more likely refers to a fake death and resurrection enacted by the Antichrist as part of his lying deception. Sound like Star Wars and the Sith, right? When the Sith act like he was going to get killed, he's calling out the Anakins to be Vaders and faking like he's going to get killed by this Jedi Windu, right? And then next thing you know, he zaps Windu with the lightning strike and starts screaming unlimited power, and he's tell everybody that this attack against him disfigured him. It's strange when you look at some of these movies, Star Wars, The Matrix. They really have some biblical themes going on there, and some of them daggone aliens. What did he say in 13:7? What does that mean, make war on the saints? The Antichrist will be allowed to massacre those who are God's children. Well, there it is. There it is, saints. Only, all that stuff about whether you're going to get crushed pre-trib, mid-trib, post-tribulation. There it is. 13:7. Well, 13:11. Another beast. I'll tell you what. I'd rather get killed nice and quick and proceed on to my heavenly realm than stay on this earth and endure all this misery and pain and suffering. These bowls and woo. Man, Yeshua Jesus, just bring me home. The bad part is to say gotta be killed. So I just can't pass out and in my sleep and pass away. I gotta get killed by these slime bags. So I'm gonna wrap up. What about these? Let's talk about these beasts right quick. In 13:11, another beast. This is the final false prophet who promotes Antichrist power and convinces the world to worship him as God. Okay, the companion beast will be the chief, most persuasive proponent of satanic religion. Antichrist will be primarily a political and military leader, but the false prophet will be a religious leader. Politics and religion will unite in a worldwide religion of worshiping the Antichrist. Out of the earth, like another reference to the abyss that lies below the earth, the false prophet will be sent forth and controlled by a powerful demon from below. The earth imagery, in contrast to that of the foreboding, mysterious sea, may imply that the false prophet is subtler and more winsome than the Antichrist. 2 horns like a lamb. This describes the relative weakness of the false prophet compared to the Antichrist, who have 10 horns. A lamb has only 2 small bumps on his head, very inferior to the 10-horned beast. Like a lamb, the lamb imagery may also imply that the false prophet will also be a fake Christ masquerading as the true lamb. Unlike Antichrist, the false prophet will come not as a killing, destroying animal, but as one who appears gentle and deceptively attractive. He spoke like a dragon. The false prophet will be Satan's mouthpiece, and thus his message will be like the dragon. 13:12, we talk about it exercises all authority of the first beast. The false prophet exercises the same kind of satanic power as the Antichrist because he is empowered by the same source. He too will have worldwide influence and reputation as a miracle worker and speaker. said makes the earth to worship. The phrase "it makes" or "it causes" is used several times of him. He wields influence to establish a false world religion headed by Antichrist and to entice people to accept that system whose mortal wound is healed. Let's read what that he said about that. This likely refers to a carefully crafted deception of a false resurrection, a false murder to inspire allegiance of the world. That is directly out of the Star Wars thing. The Sith Lord, man, he crushed down 40's top Jedi, took Mundu down, just dragged the fight out to Anakin got there. I know I shouldn't be talking about Anakin in the Bible. I'm just showing how sometimes our movies and TVs, they have these same themes. They come out of themes as old as the Bible. So when people say there's nothing new under the sun, so at any rate, man, and that thing, he went ahead and he was faking like he could have been killed. He couldn't have been killed. Windu couldn't have did the trick. He zapped him, phased him, lightning struck him, threw him out the window, started hollering about unlimited power. I was just watching it the other day, right? So, and then he goes and tell everybody, yes, these people tried to kill me and disfigured me. And it's crazy. Everybody started buying into what he was saying. They just, man, it was like the Kool-Aid, man. They were like, yeah, they just believed that he had this, this deception that come off his tongue. It was also strange to talk about these other characters and beasts in Star Wars again, right? No, this is not about Star Wars, man. I'm just showing again how movies sometimes are giving us a message and they're taken straight out of our own Bible. So he had these other Sith apprentice, right? Vader became a Sith apprentice. You had what's the dude? General Grievous. You had all these other Dominion servants, and they serve this greater evil. So, according to this Bible right here, or Revelation, Satan would be controlling it all. There'd be a great worldwide military and political force that'd come. And, the human nature always rebels, no matter how aggressive your military force is. So, just like, again, conquering the world as we know today, we sent out religion. They bastardized our Christian religion, and that's nothing new. Jesus was upset at the Pharisees for bastardizing religion and cheating religion. So, and that's what he fussed at them about. Just read it if you don't believe me. He said, man, you snakes and